Welcome. Today we are going to rock your world. I have Tyler Foley on, and we are going to have such an incredible day. But first, and always first, we got to hear the music. All right. I'll see you guys in a second. We are on the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel. This is the Coffee Break Show. I am Vicki Helm, and today with me I have this. This is the #1 best-selling author of the book. It's the How to Speak When Your Audience is Naked, or How to Speak Naked,
The
or
power to speak naked.
The Power to Speak Naked. Okay, that just to me, doesn't that just right away you're thinking to yourself, I got to know this. So, Tyler, welcome to the Coffee Break Show. I'm so glad you're here today with us. It is going to be so fun.
Oh, Vicki, I'm looking forward to this conversation from one author to another, from, and from somebody who is a true aficionado of the Rocky Mountains. I am looking forward to our conversation.
That is, we're having a good time already. I want to let you know, if you guys see this scroll, this guy has been an actor, been on several shows, several movies, and he's also a speaker, wrote the #1 best-selling book, which is always a great accomplishment. Thank you. This is my better half jumping in already.
Hi,
Welcome.
Robin.
And this is great to see you here. And The Power to Speak Naked, quite the title. I'm hooked already. I know. But first, I wanted to tell you, I want to ask the question. I already have curiosity about how you went from acting to speaking. I know that they're kind of related, but acting is on a movie set and speaking is usually a live audience or people in front of you. How did you gravitate to these two things? And are you still doing acting as well?
But first of all, great questions. Yes, yes, and yes. I had a really circuitous journey, as everybody's is, right? When we look back, it's a straight line, but when you are in it, it seems very chaotic. But there was definitely design and grace in how I've gotten to be where I am. Starting with 6 years old, I was on stage. So I started in the theater.
Wow.
And so I grew up with a live audience, and I didn't actually transition into film and television until my late teens, which, when I say it, it sounds, well, that's early on in life. But at that point, I had been performing for like 10 years by the time I had my first film credit. And eventually I retired from acting at 25, because that, a 20-year industry vet, that's what you do. You retire from your career. And I went back to school, got an engineering discipline under my belt. I started my own company. It was a mapping firm. When you have a company like that, a geomatics firm, and your primary study is photographs of the earth, your primary client is the government. And they required you to have a safety system in place. So I had to get all this safety training so that I could run my company and be compliant with our main client. And when my business collapsed, I had all of this safety training. I was able to use it to become a safety consultant. And what made me a really effective safety consultant was not the fact that I knew a lot about safety. Because the reality is I know so many other people who are much more educated in safety engineering systems, safety performance, and just safety in general. But I'm able to communicate effectively because of my training in theater and my ease on a stage and an ease and a comfort in front of an audience. And so a lot of people would ask me, how do you do that? Like, we're fascinated, not necessarily by your safety training, but just your ability to do it, because safety is very dry.
Yes.
Most safety courses are an invitation for a lobotomy. And people would come to my courses. Well, I used to subcontract to one of the largest safety organizations here in my province. And people would request my courses. They would look to see who the instructor was, and they would hold off until they could come into my course, because at least they knew they would stay awake. And so a lot of people would come to me and they would say, well, how do you do it? How do you do it? And I started to run these small little training sessions to improve people's public speaking ability.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing I knew, I was doing it over and over and over again. I was saying it more and more and more. And somebody said, well, you should probably write a book. And that's how The Power to Speak Naked came to be, because I was saying the things over and over so many times that I had a catalog of video of me saying it. And so all we did was transcribe the audio from the video and put it into the book. And then it became a lot easier for me to just be like, here, if you want to know how to do it, read this, and then come to me with the more in-depth questions. And it's just blossomed into that. So I've gone from speaking other people's words on stage to the freedom and the flexibility to be able to speak my own words on stage. And that has been a joyful 35 years.
Yes. Oh my God. It's so interesting because the career that you've had, I was like, hi, I'm 25. I already have 20 years in the industry. Thank you. We have put his link to his book up. Oh my God, the cover image. I know, right? And so we're looking here. Here's the link. It's in the description. Listen, if you're listening in iHeartRadio, if you're on Pandora, if you're on wherever you're driving and you're listening live, relax. The link is inside the you don't have to pull over or look at your phone. Keep driving safely. The link is inside the thread today, so you can go ahead and get your copy there. I just want to keep going. This is so interesting. Imagine having a 20-year career already completed and under your belt at 25. Go to college, get a degree. The diversity by which your career has maneuvered and kind of been led to, it's so interesting because it wasn't planned. It was it unfolded, wasn't it? It was just something that unfolded. And suddenly you're working at a government assignment who does these, safety things. And I thought to myself, yeah, that would be really boring. And to be able to jazz that up a little bit so that people are actually looking for you. I want to dive into what makes a good speaker. Now, I want to let you know, for me, I'm completely self-taught, and I'm a self-taught writer, self-taught speaker, I have no skills whatsoever. I just hope that, my authenticity is something that people are okay with. They're like, well, she's not very rehearsed. And I want to know what makes a good speaker. I just want to pop over here. What about the power of the unknown synergy? Yes. Right. Isn't that, we'll get to that too, because there's two pieces of this. One is that his life just kind of unfolded for him. And then two, he had some interesting skills that you never thought would marry each other so well. And that's what's interesting about it. And then there's some skill sets I want to talk about as a speaker or an interviewer or somebody that's present on stage. I want to go into that as well. And I promise, MJ, we will get to your question and talk about that as well. And I don't care which one you end up talking about first. Okay, I do. I want my question answered first. I want to go into maybe 3 things that speakers, or let's just say new speakers, new interviewers, new speakers, what are some of the key things that you think that could benefit them, that would help them start to make a great career, to make a great podcast or a great show of some sort? How to be a good interviewer, how to be a good guest, so they have some sense of what the speaking part is. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Oh yeah, no.
Great, you go.
One thing that I would like to address, Vicki, you had said that you had no skills, and that's not true. You were self-taught, but in order for you to be able to sharpen that pencil, you still needed lead. So you had the skills the same way that I did. I just had the freedom to have worked on this skill set from a very early age. I had mentors at 6 who were like, kid, you've got a pretty good voice going. You've got a little bit of charisma. Let's work on it. And this is, you had said another word, that you hope that the audience just likes the authentic you. So to answer your question, one of the first things that anybody can do if they want to be a more dynamic speaker is know who they authentically are. And I don't like the word authentic. I find it's been overused in the industry. It's become this real buzzword, and I don't think people really appreciate what authenticity actually is.
Agreed.
Because, you know, people will say, well, like, I grew up in a rural community in a very rough, we'll say, area, and so I will swear like a sailor who was raised by a trucker if given the opportunity. But that doesn't mean that I have to swear to be authentically me. Like right now, I think I am genuinely me. I am just choosing my words carefully given the live audience. So for somebody to say, well, I have to swear because that's authentically me. No, that's you putting on a front. I think
Agreed.
that authenticity is synonymous with self-awareness. You know who you are, Vicky. You know who you are through to the core. And you
Absolutely.
no apologies to that when you're speaking in front of your audience. And
Agreed.
I love that about you.
Thank you.
And that's why people will continue to tune into the coffee break, why they continue to read your books, why they come to your seminars, why they come to see you, is because you wait, they know who they're getting. And
that's true. And thank you, MJ.
Yes, thank you, MJ. And that is the secret sauce. Like the biggest mistake I find new speakers make, myself included, is you try to be someone else, right? I want to be the next Tony Robbins is probably the death nail in every speaker, because Tony is Tony.
Yep.
And Brian Tracy is Brian Tracy, and Les Brown is Les Brown, and they are all those people because they are who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Les Brown is Mama Brown's baby, you know, and he will say that forever and ever. Like, he knows who he is through to the core. I will never be the next Tony Robbins, because nobody will be, because Tony is Tony. I want to be the best Tyler Foley that anybody has ever seen.
Love that.
And when you can first grasp that concept, the sooner you can do that, the more effective you can be as a speaker.
I totally agree.
And again, there's nothing wrong with emulation and study and learning technique. You know, one of my great privileges is that I work with a team that brings Tony Robbins and other really great speakers to Canada. And I get to volunteer and help coordinate those events. And I started doing that specifically so that I could study great speakers, that I could see Tony in the flesh and see what he does and study it and learn. And, you know, Phil Town, who is a phenomenal speaker, Molly Bloom, like, these are great people who have learned their craft and are continually learning too. Like, that's the thing. They don't sit on their laurels.
That's right.
You look at what Tony had to do over the last 18 months.
Oh yeah.
You know, he's and the blessing that it was for him, because he's rapidly increased his revenue, his reach, and improved his health by not having to travel as much. So everybody is learning.
Yep. And that's a big statement you just made right there, because I know for me, a lot of people in the world, I mean, a lot of people in the world get to the point where they think being a speaker is some really sexy career. And I remember in 2017, there I traveled so much. I was everywhere and I was so exhausted. And I remember thinking, I'm going to travel half time in 2018. And when 2019 came and we're online like this, I thought to myself, this is the equalizer right here. Talk to your audience live right here anytime they want to listen and create this. This is heaven. And traveling as a speaker isn't as fun as as I first thought it was going to be. I mean, you know,
well, it depends on where you place your events. So I'm strategic with my events. I only go to really cool places. I'm like, you know, I think Des Moines, Iowa is a beautiful place. I actually have friends who live in Des Moines. I am never putting on an event there. No offense, Des Moines. But
I agree.
But if you want to come see me in, I love going to Miami. I love
Oh,
going
love
to
Miami.
Houston. I love going to San Diego, but I also love
Love
going
San
to
Diego.
Dubai. I love going to Kuala Lumpur. I
Mhm.
really like, and the thing is and I'm about to insult a lot of Australians, so bear with me. I don't like Sydney. And the funny thing is one of my, you know, big, hairy, audacious, my bag goals is to speak at the Sydney Opera House. I would love to do that one day, but I actually don't really like the city. I would much rather be in Melbourne or Brisbane. So
Oh.
I will speak in Melbourne and Brisbane, and Sydney can travel to me. It's just right. So and being specific with your travel, like you're very very targeted, because I was the same as you were, Vicky, where I think, and it's similar to like 2017, 2018.
Yep.
I was on the road 220 days.
Yeah, it's hard.
And you know, when you're going hotel room to hotel room to hotel room to hotel room in places that you've never heard of, that you couldn't pinpoint on a map and you probably can't pronounce, that travel gets a little exhausting.
You know, it's interesting too, because when we're talking about speaking as a career right now, there's a couple of things that I have found that I absolutely love. And I think if you're working towards getting paid to speak, which is the best part of it, or sell from stage, whatever you're doing, the one thing that I have found as a speaker is I absolutely love the interview model, which when I'm on stage, I'm not an interviewer. I am the person who is delivering the message. I'm delivering the keynote or whatever I'm doing in that way. And that has been fantastic. But there is something that brings me such incredible joy to have conversations like this. And I'm not sure I want to go back to doing that traversing. And I think there is a point, if you're going to, start speaking, start with a blog or a vlog or get out there. You can get out there and penetrate such a huge market just simply by discovering you doing a live. And what I found out was I love interviewing people. I love finding out about how they tick, how did they get there? What was their path? I mean, it's just fascinating. And had I just continued to be a speaker where you go on stage and, I've come from the sell up stage, been on
Mhm.
stages all over the world with the biggest names. You can be out there, sell from stage and go home. And now I just love selling your stuff from my venue at this place. And the thing is, there's no retirement age to speaking. And
Yeah.
that's like Mark Victor Hansen still out there. Jack can be still out there. It is like the one career where, it's suddenly you don't age yourself out of it. It's an interesting platform. So, 3 skill sets speakers need to have under their belt. What would be the top? Hang on, let me see. I just want to pop this up. Many speakers I know prefer, virtual to in person these days, no longer want to travel. It's a lot. It's a lot of travel. And when you're young, it's okay, because when you get to the Sydney Opera House, you're super, super, super tired, but you'll still get up on stage and do your thing and come back home and be super tired on the way home. So, yeah, that's true. They do like that. So, 3 things that we have, 3 things that you think are important skill sets for speakers to have.
Well, and I will get to that in a moment, but I want to point out one other
Sure.
thing with the virtual. I think speakers prefer it because, again, it's limiting the travel they're able to do. Not only are you able to do more speaking engagements, just from a logistics standpoint, because I've got my studio and I don't move from here, and so I can stack these up hour, or I can do an event, and I'm not tied to travel time either. But I'm more importantly, the audience, I think, is enjoying it as well. Because if there wasn't an audience for it, we wouldn't be able to do it. But I think people are currently, anyways, enjoying being able to consume this content from the comfort of their own home and on their
Interesting.
schedule,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
right? And so you, to your question, what is the skill, one of the 3 skill sets that you need to have a pulse on what your audience requirement is. Like, who is your audience and what are their needs? Because if you are not serving your audience, you won't have an audience to speak to. And
Yes.
and that
Interesting.
is the first thing that you need as a speaker is an audience.
Mhm.
So being able to have people come to you is critical, and understanding what their needs are. And so if you can serve them virtually, that's fantastic, because that is one of their needs. Maybe they don't want to travel, or you're a snotty speaker like Tyler Foley is, and you're only going to go to these really cool cities, and somebody doesn't live in said city, and they're like, well, I'm not going, if you're not going to travel to me, I'm not going to travel to you, which is an entirely reasonable stance to have. And now when we have this power of a virtual ticket where you can now come in and see me, and that's right. So random Facebook user, you are correct.
I think that's Deborah Jason, and I've
Hi,
spoken
Deborah.
on stage with her. She's a great speaker.
Yeah, and she's exactly right. It's not about you. Les Brown, actually, so I will quote Les for forever, because I've been on stage
He's
with him,
awesome.
and he is amazing. And actually, I think he might have taken this from the late great Bernie Dorman, and that
Bernie
is
Dorman. Wow.
right.
Thank you.
I
know
the world lost.
They
a
lost
great man.
badly. That it chokes me up still when I talk about that.
I do too, because that man was a mentor to me.
He was a
He
great
took
dude.
me under his wing, and I will forever be grateful to everything that he did for me, and I will continue to support September in every mission that she has going forward. But I know that I heard it from him, and I think there's an argument between Bernie and Les on who said it first, but it's less about me and more about thee. And if you want to have true audience engagement, if you want to serve your audience properly, you need to know that it has nothing to do with you. Which brings me to point number 2. What do you need to have in that tool belt? You need to have a powerful story. But in framing that story, where most speakers fail in presenting a powerful story, is they present themselves as the hero in the hero's journey.
That's
and
true.
If you study Joseph Campbell's hero journey, where you have a hero who's in a stasis of unaware, and then there is a moment of crisis that brings them into turmoil, and then they meet their sage and their mentor, who teaches them through a series of trials and tribulations so that they have the knowledge they need to overcome their final adversary. Beautiful. What happens is, when you're a new speaker, you tend to insert yourself as the hero. Mm-hmm. The reality is, you're the sage or the mentor that the hero meets along the journey, because you have the tools to give them the information so that they can learn on their own. So if you want to tell a powerful story from stage, you can't tell it from a point of ego. It has to be from a point of service. I want to show you how you can overcome this thing, how you can learn from my mistakes, from my experience, so that when you meet Darth Vader, you know how to wield the lightsaber, right? And instead of being like, hey, look how cool I can wave this flashy laser sword, right? That doesn't sell anybody. I want to teach you the ways of the Jedi, young Padawan, and that way you can become a Jedi Master yourself.
That's right.
So you're Obi-Wan Kenobi. You are not Luke Skywalker. And there ain't nothing wrong with being Obi-Wan.
That's right. What you just said is so important. I do not want to skim over this. Hey, Ross, nice to see you on, my friend. I just want to pop over here. Joseph Campbell rules. I've studied his info for years. Always discover something new. I know, right? So really good. Thanks. Nice to see you on, my friend. So I'm looking at this from such an interesting perspective, because inside of the conversation, there's this kind of underlining of self-worth, self-love, spirituality, and serving. So I'm taking this as an interesting concept, because a lot of speakers think that if they speak, they're suddenly going to have influence and authority. I mean, that's what they want, influence and authority. They want to become an influencer. And that's not what a speaking career is about. The speaking career, for me, has been a way that I can be the front end healer. And what does that mean? Or mentor. And I do it quietly behind the scenes. I'm not very loud about it. The one thing that I want to show completely and make it okay to show completely is your warts and all. And that is when I'm on stage. And the hero's journey is a big deal because by the time you get on stage and you start speaking and you're affecting an audience, you will have more benefit if you've gone through the hero's journey, and know that the hero's journey is just continuous. Even when you hit enlightenment, I mean, we know Eckhart Tolle's story. We know Byron Katie's story. We know all of these, how they overcame and break through, and they're still doing that right now. There's level after level of that awakening. And I love how you use the tools that you have to allow you to have the kind of awakening that you need to have. I'm just going to pop off and say thank you for joining us today, Deborah Jason. You know, I love you, my friend. Mwah. Thanks. And I want to pop on to Ross. Yes, when the mirror to the ego, we become the ego. That's right. And so the cool thing is there's a choice as to how you serve the audience. I want to be the healer in front of the audience because I have a knowing inside myself that a lot of people heal just by watching what other people do. When you're defensive, how do you get out of it? Well, if I'm defended in the moment, I'll say it. I'll let them watch how I get out of it to share that. And it's that hero's journey that has all the juice and all the power in it. And I love that you mentioned it. I love that it's grounded in that. And I love that because that to me is the true path. To me, that's the true path. When you can meet yourself, and even though you think you know yourself, here's the key piece of it that I have learned over the years, that you're unconditional, and how you can mold and transform is endless. It is endless. And the thought that you mold and transform into one thing, I'm now me, that's BS. And when you're on stage and you're a speaker, you will see you transform and transform and transform and transform. And the only way that I believe you get good at that is to do it and do it and do it and do it and do it. Like I've been on stage and on lives or everything. I've done over 1,000 keynotes. At that point, it's the evolution of the soul that is the ticket for your audience. They want to see that. And one of the things that I liked about what you said that I think is so honorable from the very first part of the conversation is that you talked about being your authentic self. So now let's say you're presenting as Luke Skywalker instead of Yoda. And you're the mentor that they're going to see because my book is out, and I have 6-figure coach to 7-figure mentor, and it's all about that journey that you just talked about right there. And for me, that's where the money is hidden. This chasing this other thing, it's not there. People want to work with mentors. So if you're in the position right now where you're talking, speaking, doing whatever you're doing, and you get to the point where you want to make that shift into stop being Luke and start being Yoda, what are some ways that people can actually forge that kind of conversation with their audience?
Well, so a couple of things, and we've had just a whole bunch in that last 5 minutes.
I know, but it was there.
So let's your
unpack
audience
it.
Deserves to go into a bit of a deep dive here. So let's do that. The first thing is, you had alluded to it, and I'm going to steal a phrase that I've actually heard, and I wish I could give credit to who it came from. It was a thing that was in passing at another event that I was, and I wish I could quote it. But never speak from a point of a wound. Speak from the scars.
Yeah.
Right. Scars have healed.
It.
Wounds are still festering.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you talk about having to have that complete hero's journey, if you're still suffering from the stab, you're not really in a position to
mentor,
be the sage and the mentor.
That's
because you're
right.
still dealing with it. What you have to do is be able to look back at the scars and say, this is how I got this. This is the story behind this wound. This is the story behind this wound. So the first thing to do is to recognize, are you still dealing with a stab, or are you dealing with a scar? The stabs are the things that you need to be conscious and aware of as you start to grow. The scars are the things that you can then pass on to your mentorship. And
Beautiful.
I'm of the belief that we are, if we really truly want to enjoy the human experience, we need to be three things at the same time. The first one, you need to be a teacher and a mentor to someone.
Yep.
That is where we get the most joy and excitement out of life, is passing on knowledge. It's the human condition. It's how we've lived for eons. And when you can do that, you can feel the most alive. So you need to have that.
Agreed.
But you also need to have a peer group that
Mhm.
supports you,
That's
that
right.
supports you in your growth. So not only do you need to be a teacher, but you need to be a peer, and a good peer. You need to contribute to your social circle. You need to be helping everybody rise, right? The high tide raises all boats. So we need a peer group that is supporting us, and that we are supporting, that we are contributing to equally as much as they are. And so finding that peer group is critical. But then you also need to be a student. You need to not be satisfied with the level of knowledge that you have currently, that you need to seek those mentors, because there's always somebody who's doing it at a higher level than us. And there's always somebody who's doing it at our level. And there's always somebody who we can teach, and we can always be taught. So I believe that you need to be all three at the same time. You need to be a teacher, a peer, and a student. And if you have that,
Beautiful.
that's when you feel the most fulfilled,
And the
because
most
you are,
alive. It
because you're
is. That
right.
is that is the quintessential quality of life formula right there. That's why they tell you no matter what, you're a lifelong learner. That's so critical what you said. There's that I think it's Zen. I'm not sure, that full cup thing. When you're a full cup, you should never, never, never be a full cup. And Ross, I want to pop this up because I liked what he said. I found that the definition of a hero is very cloudy. People need to understand who they want to be by first understanding who they are now. This I like. And why I like this statement is because we create our own stuckness. It's the thing that this unpeels is, you can outgrow a career. We talked about this last week. You could outgrow a career, you can outgrow something. Where you are now, and then the ability to say, where do I want to be from where I want to go right now. Thank you, Ross. This is beautiful. And you should have him on your show, Ross. I got to say, but the thing that's interesting here is the transformation process. The transformation process that he's talking about, that to me is my quality of life, that I think is so important, is that continuation of those three things that he just mentioned. It's like, yes, you got to be the student and the teacher and a peer. Those things right there, when you get to that point, allows you to have connection, quality relationships, support, those things that are out there. That are out there for, I want to say, high performance individuals. Because by the time you've gotten to these three things, there's like the average and ordinary, or the masses, which are there. But you have to get to the point where you understand that you can transform into a high performance individual. And the way you live that as a quality of life are those exact three things that Tyler just shared. They're so important right now. It makes my hair stand up when you say that, because I'm like, yes, that's such an incredibly good quality of life and such an important part of wealth.
Well, and the other point that has come up, and it's come up continually through this conversation, is, again, we didn't get to finish off my thought on authenticity, because I went off on a tangent and then we went off on a tangent. And for me, I believe that authenticity is synonymous with self-awareness, which
Agreed.
brings up the point that just came in the comment. You need to know who you are now in order to be able to, pick the path, and remember that the paths are infinite. There was a time in my life where I wanted to be a marine biologist. I did not take that path. But, where would it have gone if I had invested the energy that I invested in these other pursuits to do that?
Yeah.
Ironically, unbeknownst to me, my cousin actually did choose to be a marine biologist. I had no idea that it was a career that she wanted to do, and now she lives in British Columbia and studies oceanography and is a fantastic scientist in her own right. But I look at her path and I go, it's amazing to me that I actually do have a parallel where I can look and be like, well, that could have actually been me had I pursued that. So remembering that, like, our paths are infinite. From the time where you are right now, you could hit any waypoint in 365 degrees, both vertically and horizontally. It's infinite space that you can travel through. But the key to it is knowing where you are currently, right?
That's right.
I can't travel to you, Vicky, if I don't know where I am right now. The GPS waypoint needs me to know where I am. So that authenticity is synonymous with self-awareness. I need to know who I am at my core. Where am I at? What is my skill set? What am I good at? Where can I find improvements? Where do I actually even want to improve? Like, I could improve 1,000 different areas of my life at any given moment. Which ones do I actually care to focus on right now? What are the priorities? What are my values? What drives me? Because if I'm constantly chasing the shiny rainbow, and really what I want is the pot of gold, I'm never going to touch either.
True that.
So I need to know what am I actually going after? And then be real honest. If you could do it right now, why aren't you? So
I
what are
ask
those skill
that
sets?
all the time. Why is it not here yet? If you have a vision for yourself and it's out there, the first thing I ask myself is, why isn't it here yet? Because that is the calling yourself out is a big deal. That's the place most people, stop, is calling themselves out, because the pain of doing that, the pain of the realization, or whatever story you're telling yourself about shame or guilt or blah, 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 all of that can stop that part of you that is actually questioning and growing and moving into. But if there's something that you want to be or become, the first thing I tackle is the concept of myself, because believe it or not, the first thing you learn is somebody else's concept of who you are. The second thing you learn is how painful that concept of somebody else has you. You're this, 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 this. And then the search for who you are. When you finally decide that your concept of you start to feel comforted, and you go into a comfort zone, and then you never realize further who you are. And this is I think one of the biggest points that you have is stepping out of that comfort zone of who you think you are to understanding who you actually are, because what you think isn't who you are. It's just your current perception or your current perspective. And that concept of yourself is also what's going to provide you with that quality of life that he's talking about. And it sounds so far off, like, okay, I thought we were talking about speaking today. But this is the point of speaking. What people do when they get on stage or they see you on live like this is they're listening on all levels. There's part of them that is completely silent, and all they're doing is sensing your vibe. It's quiet. They don't say anything, they don't do anything, but in their mind they're kind of judging. Do I like this dude? Do I like her? Do I like the conversation? Everything is being gauged silently. Then there are those that are so attentive. It's the first time they're actually in the moment, because you're helping them be in the moment. They're aware that they're so present, they don't want to miss a word you're saying. And if the vibe of you matches the vibe of your inner self there, you create a resonance like a guitar string where you smack it, and the whole audience that wants to be in that resonance with you will show up. That's the power of, I think, Tyler, what you just said. It's so important. Yeah, that's right. Tell them right now, Tyler, preach it. That's right. The method of that. And I think it's so important, because we think that speaking makes a great gig and, oh, I'm an influencer, but the healing, the power of what you can do as a speaker is amazing. So, how do you choose what to talk about?
Well, I'm going to answer the question with a few statements. The first one is what you were talking about with the resonance in an audience.
Mhm.
That is a scientifically measurable thing. I'm
Mhm.
sure you're aware of heart math. And so,
Mhm.
if there's anybody in your audience who isn't, I strongly encourage you to do a little bit of research after this show and look up heart math. But very simplistically, they have studied the connection between the mind and the heart. And when your mind and your heart are in resonance, the sinusoidal wave, when they measure the EKGs, the electrical magnetic pulse that your heart naturally gives off because it works on an electrical beat, and your neurons in your brain fire through electrical impulses. And anytime you have electricity flowing, there is a magnetic field, and that's how we measure a lot of these devices that are measuring brain activity, heart activity. They're measuring the electrical pulses. When our heart and our minds are in alignment, those sinusoidal waves match up in resonance, right? Harmonic resonance. This, as you had pointed out, it's like a guitar string or a tuning fork. If I hit a tuning fork that is tuned to C, the fork over here that is also tuned to C will start to vibrate because of the harmonic resonance. What happens is when that harmonic resonance is in alignment, the electromagnetic field, based on pure physics, grows.
Mhm.
So when you say that we have an intuition of whether somebody is in alignment with us, that's an actual physical thing that we can measure. And
That's right.
I, as a speaker, am not aligned in my heart and my mind. My electromagnetic field is non-synchronous. It creates static, and the electromagnetic field actually shrinks. We sense that. We know when.
That's right. It's that silent conversation.
But when you are in alignment, it grows. And as a good speaker, when you can get the two vibrating at the same frequency and your audience vibrates at the same frequency, that's when people say there's an electricity in the air. Like Tony's really good at it, right? Like,
Yeah,
when
he is.
he's clicking on all cylinders and the whole
Yeah.
audience feels it, and you're just riveted by everything that he's saying. Sorry, everything that he's saying. You can't help but feel it because it's a real thing, because you're putting out an electromagnetic wave, and when everybody is in resonance, it amplifies itself like a battery. It just grows and grows and grows. So if you want to be that truly authentic speaker, you need to make sure that your heart and your mind are in alignment.
Amen.
And that again comes back to that authenticity. That comes back to being honest about yourself and then sharing those stories, because there's a power in story. Like, you look at all of the
Yes.
greats, right? Yourself included, you don't come from a point of statistics. You come from a point of this is a story, and it usually starts with a feeling, because that's how we start to get the mind to get in tune with the heart. And if you want to be a truly effective speaker, and on a small scale, microcosm, you want to have impact in the boardroom the next time you're presenting sales
Yes.
statistics. One of the key things is to get people to process the information not from here, but from here. And I love doing this little experiment. So, Vicky, if you will please just indulge me just for 1 second.
Yes.
I want everybody who's watching right now and anybody who's listening to a replay later. The replay is actually better, because if they're only listening to auditory, it makes this experiment a little bit more fun. But wherever you are right now, I want you to point to where you think cardinally north is. You don't have to be right. I want you to point where right now, wherever you're sitting, where you think north is. For me, it's here. Okay. So it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, where you think north is. Now, I'll give you a little bit easier. If this is where you think is north, I want you to point to wherever you think east is. Point east wherever you are right now. Now I'm going to give you an even easier one. I want you to point to up wherever your ceiling is. Now point down to wherever the floor is. Now I want you to point to where you are. Point to you. Oh, Vicky, you are the first person that I've ever seen do that. I'd be curious to know in the comments. I would love to see some flood of comments. Did you point to your head like Vicky did, or to your heart like I did? Because I swear to you, Vicky, you are the first person in about 100 times I've done this that pointed directly to your core center, which I think is fascinating.
But I actually know who I am.
But so that's amazing, because most people, when they're indicating themselves, will
They go to
point
the heart
here.
Uh-huh.
But you're right, you are in true alignment with yourself. So I'm not surprised that this. But I find it interesting that it was the third eye. You didn't point to the temple like this. You didn't come up like this.
Nope.
You pointed right to the mind's eye. So
That's
that is
right.
even more fascinating to me. But the majority of people, I'd love to hear in the comments, most people point here, because Vicky's dialed in. That's right, Amber, she is. The majority, including myself, will point to here, because here in the chest is where we identify with ourselves. So if you want to affect your audience, trying to catch them here, unless they're truly, truly enlightened, and you and I both know that is a rare, small fractional percentage. You can affect people here, but it's so much easier if you affect people here. And that's where the power of story comes in, because it reaches into, if you're doing it correctly, you're tapping into how you felt here, which brings your mind, it forces your mind to feel how you felt. It gets your mind and your heart into alignment. And then you speak how you're feeling out to your audience, which will get their mind and heart into alignment. And that's when you can affect really powerful change.
This is it, people. If you rewind anything and listen to anything, what he just said is the most important. That's the thing I do on stage. I know who I am. I know who I serve. And I'm not talking about an audience when I say I know who I serve. I know the master I serve. I know the audience I serve. I know the inner self that I serve. And before I walk on stage, I have the notion, because I tell everyone when I start a conversation, I let it go where it needs to go. I'm in the moment with it, because then what wants to be said will be said. And there's a very key thing that I do, because I'm untrained. I don't know the how to's, if to's. I want to be as authentically me as I can. There is a point where if you surrender to that alignment that he's just talking about, you will never need to speak from a script. You will just allow. And that in that allow, that's where divinity flows through you as you speak, and not because you have something well written. Surrendering to that, that's the work. That's the work over and over and over and over. And every Wednesday, I get to practice that. And every day that I'm there, I practice that. And that moment that you become that, that's why I love talking to people. Like I could keep him on for another 3 hours and just have another cup of coffee and we could just talk this, because he is on my pedestal with me. And I love this place. This is my box. This is my soapbox right here. And it's interesting because I didn't think the conversation was going to go this way. And I thank you for that. Yes. Yes. What is this? Yes. Taps in and removes extraneous garbage that can get in your way. Yes. Dang, I lost the video. I have to replay. That's right. Hashtag. Let's see. Vic has the Cyclops eye. Yes. Yes,
right.
I do.
That's right, MJ.
But the interesting thing is everything about speaking, truly being a speaker, leads you to that inward place, that alignment place. So when I go on stage, I have outsold so many people. The reason I outsell them is I'm not trying to use a high pressure sales tactic. I'm trying to let you meet me and decide for yourself that you want to work with me. Full stop.
Yeah.
Full stop. What I want to actually give you is you. Even through whatever course, whatever book you read, whatever you're looking at, can I give you you? Because you're the thing you need in order to make your 7 figures, in order to build that career, that life, that quality of life you want. And I think what Tyler said today is so important, for everyone, because if you want to be a speaker, it's about first knowing who you are, what you like to speak about. Thank you. I'm feeling you right here. I'm taking this all in. Fire. Great interview. Thank you so much. I think I know who this is, but I want to tell you I love you. My point in saying this is that the whole approach to making a difference in the world is allowing them to see you make a difference in your world. And that's the key for me, how I got past not having to be a trained speaker to be, and I don't know what to call it. I don't know what to call it. I don't know
Well,
what
I'll
an
tell you
interviewer.
right now, Vicky, and that's so yes, an interviewer. And you had said something at the beginning when we had kicked this off, probably within the first 2 or 3 minutes of our interview, where you had stumbled the similar way about this untrained speaker, and you weren't really sure what to, and what you enjoyed the most now was the interview style, because from a keynote
Yes.
perspective, you and I know because I've been there, where you feel this need to fill those 45 minutes with just words coming out of your mouth.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have learned, and I have a luxury because the product that I sell is teaching people to speak. So what I want to hear is other people speak, which has given me this freedom and this flexibility that when I am a keynote presenter, even when I'm presenting, my material takes up 40% of the interview. If you were to see me do a keynote, if I had an hour-long keynote, it would go exactly like this conversation went. Because the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to qualify my audience. And it seems salesy because so many people use this technique, and they use it not for good, but for evil. Where they will ask, right? Who here does this, and who is that, and who amongst us can do this thing, and what, right? Who wants to be a mega millionaire? Everybody wants to be a mega millionaire. I want to know who here struggles with public speaking. If I gave you the opportunity right now, who would want to trade places with me, and who would run out the door right now? If you would run out the door right now, I want you to raise your hand. Why?
Beautiful.
Why are you terrified of this stage? What are the limitations? And why do you want to be on this stage? What message do you want to provide? Like what is driving you to be on this stage? And then we start having these conversations, because you have two totally different points of view in the exact same room. And these ones are presenting very good arguments of why they are never going to get on stage. And these ones are presenting incredible arguments on why they absolutely positively must be on stage. And we start having a conversation. And my job is just to interview my audience.
Beautiful.
And learn from them. So you had asked, what are the 3 things? And we've covered 2 of them. The third one, if you want to be one of the best speakers on the planet, and you only have to look at who those are, do a top 3 list in your head, top 5 list of the speakers that you admire, that you would love to emulate, that you would love to work with.
Yeah.
What they have in common is not that they are powerful orators, but they have this gift of speech. What they have is an unbelievable intuition to listen to their audience and to serve each audience, knowing that each one is a different and unique entity. And even though they have, I have 5 main canned materials, right? I have 5 main talking points that I can hammer home, but I only want to use those in conjunction and service to the audience that needs to hear it in the order in which they need to hear it. And the only way that I can know that is to listen. So you want to be a powerful speaker, stop speaking, start listening.
Gorgeous.
And through the power of listening, you can then become that vessel that Vicky's talking about, where you can start to intuitively serve the audience based on their needs. But you can only do that if you're listening to the audience. And I don't mean just with your eyes or with your ears. You need to use your eyes. You need to use your heart. You need to feel what is needed.
That's reading the room. And that's a little more advanced there, reading the room. But earlier you said something, reading the room. First off, thank you, MJ. I just want to say thank you for buying Tyler's book. You're right. He is absolutely fascinating. Robin, could you put the Amazon link or the link to Tyler's book, wherever it is, book.org or whatever it is, up
Oh,
on the
Jeff
screen
Bezos
here?
has it up. It's the fastest way for our American friends to get the
Great.
book.
Okay. American friends. Boom. There it is. Thank you. Discernment is key. Yes. Powerful. Love this. Thank you, everybody. I see you guys on. If you want to be part of the conversation, Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life channel, you can be there and add in. So glad you're here. Thank you for the link. This is the link to the book. You can see right now that if you actually are looking at a serious career as a speaker, you want to learn from a mentor, not somebody who's just selling a speaking gig, but an actual mentor, somebody who's doing that. Tyler is absolutely that way. And I'm so enjoying this conversation. My hair is on fire. I am so full of joy to connect with the interviewee at this depth. It fills my cup to the nth degree to have conversations in this manner. It's why I love doing the interview. It's so empowering to hear real mentorship, not tips and tricks and tools in this, but actual mentorship of how to become a good. There's a point where when he's talking, it's about being a connector and learning the skills of a connector as you speak. He just said something that was so important. 40% of the conversation is him, 20% is out connecting with the audience. That is so important. And for me, one of those connections, when you connect with your audience and they connect with you, there is something else that's created in that resonance. And here's what I know for sure: when you're out on stage and or online right now, the resonance that we just created by this conversation is inside you, and you're going to carry that into the world today. There's a part of your world or who you are or how you feel in this moment that is more aware, more conscious, and that consciousness spreads that way. That's the importance of being a speaker right there. So if they want to be in connection with you, if they want to take your speaking course, where do they go? What do they do? How do they get a hold of you?
Oh,
Thank you very much for this, MJ.
yeah, no, thank you, MJ. And thank you, Vicky, for asking. One of the easiest ways to get a hold of me is just to go to my website. So at SeanTylerFoley.com. Just it's exactly as it's spelled. For those who can't see it, I spell Sean the Irish way, which is SeanTylerFoley.com. So if they go to
Could you put
SeanTylerFoley.com,
that up for me, Robin? Can you pop that in there for me?
yeah, and that's the easiest way to find me, the book, speaking courses, my calendar, and I definitely appreciate, and everyone who's purchased a book today following your link. I always do appreciate that. But one of the things that I would like as a thank you, honestly, Vicky, is if people regularly tune into the coffee break, or if even if they've read the She Myth or Ultimate Freedom or any of your books that you've got out, if they're a regular consumer of your content, if they haven't already, I would love for them to give you a 5-star review, because I
Thank you.
love the work that you do, and I follow along on occasion, and I want anybody who is being served by the message that you do to reward you for that. Right? So if there's a favorite episode, or if they like a particular passage in one of your books, that are many, and just say what it is. If it was the book, give it that Amazon review, give it the Goodreads review. If it's this show and this is how they're consuming your content, whatever platform or device they're listening to it on, because it is many as well, let you know by giving you that thumbs up or that like or that share or that 5-star review, and be specific on what it is. And then if they do that, then when they come over to my website, SeanTylerFoley.com, I'd be more than happy to give them our giveaway. There's a free giveaway on the front landing page above the fold for them. It's called The Method. It's 5 insider secrets for them to grab to make them a better speaker. And that's 35 years of my experience compressed into the 5 little tips. And if they want to get more, we have a free Facebook group that's linked on the website as well. I would love for anybody who wants to be a more powerful and effective speaker to come in. Right now, I just launched the group. So the first 100 that get into the group, and I think we have 20 or 25 in the group since it launched last week. We have a couple of freebies for what we're calling our founding members. And so the first 100 that get in to do it, if that could be some of your audience as well, Vicki, I would love it. And I would welcome them into the group.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. It has been such a joy to be here today. Listen, you guys, go get his book, become part of his world, go on and be a fan on his Facebook group, go join them and learn how to be a great speaker. This is the quintessential gift to be able to communicate well, full stop, whether you're on stage or off stage. Listen, next week we have another really badass guest, and I hope you join us. But that's been today's Coffee Break Show. And now it's time to listen to the music.